So what do you think some of your influences have been that have led you to where you are today?
Um, we're talking both in terms of what led me to this and then whom.
Yes.
Influences in terms of whom. Okay. Well, what led me to this in general was that I have a love of working with homeless people in housing, and my past work experience is also in that area. So now, in terms of whom has influenced me, I think my biggest influences are, we talked about this at another point, John Locke, a philosopher, very much a proponent of social contract theory. Jane Addams, social worker, founder of Hull House, which is basically the first of the settlement houses here in the United States. I want Holly House to model a lot of what that settlement house work did. Jane Addams in particular was very much a believer of combining classes in socioeconomic classes in particular, in order to develop disenfranchised and poor neighborhoods and communities. Through her work was largely with immigrant populations in Chicago, New York primarily. But the whole settlement house notion is that it is not one person or one organization running services or providing services in the community, but rather that the community runs itself. The community works together at all social classes: philanthropists, wealthy people, middle class, and of course the poor, disenfranchised and impoverished community. And that all these classes are working in an integrated fashion and providing services to and for each other at some level. Okay, and that's very much what I envision for this organization, and basically how I set it up, and it works that way now, where we have college students as volunteers, the primary volunteers. We have church is very involved. We have, of course, our philanthropists that have given us some money, which has allowed us to start doing what we're doing here. And then clients are actually participatory in volunteer projects as well as board functions. So, and they do, I try to have the clientele, for lack of a better word, I really don't like that word. Adams didn't like it either. We call these people people. They're human beings, clients, okay? And it's you and me and humans all together. But the settlement house model was very much like that as well, where everybody's working together, and there were no real true distinctions between clientele using or benefiting from the services as there were the people that were providing some services for them. So, and then last but not least, by all means, Dorothy Day. I have a piece by her I read a lot of Day. And she's here on my desk as my envelopes fall off my lap. But Day was founder of the Catholic Worker paper, and believed that writing was a powerful tool. This goes to your being a reporter as well. That writing was a powerful, powerful tool to educate the public and the community, and to be used for disenfranchised, impoverished groups to express their needs and deal with political issues in a non-threatening, peaceful fashion. And Day created, not only did she start the Catholic Worker with Peter Maurin, but she also established what they called houses of hospitality, which are actually still in function. Settlement houses are still around too, to my knowledge. I worked in one in Columbus when I was in graduate school, and started there with that piece. But houses of hospitality are still around, that Day and Maurin started. I think it was back in the 30s and 40s. It might have been prior to that as well. So I'm not a history buff, so I don't pretend to know dates off the top of my head. But my brother, who is, would hit me in the head for that one. But anyway, those three people have greatly influenced my work here. Bottom line is, Holly House aims to not only provide safe and affordable housing options for homeless residents of Wayne County, which is the service outcome or whatever that we intend, but we're also, part of our mission statement is that we're trying to create a community of care and concern. And that goes to those settlement house, the houses of hospitality, the Lockean theory of social contract, where we're working together as a community to provide a very big need for a large group of people.
So where do your clients come from? Where do you find them, or how do they find you?
They find me mostly. Yeah, I don't have to go looking very far, which is sad, but. No, mostly it's from the shelter system. We're very blessed here in Wayne County to have 2 shelters, Every Woman's House and then Salvation Army. And then they are walk-ups, self-referred through churches or through probation department, the jail system, the jail and correctional facilities system. They come to me, or I get connected with them. I'm largely going out to them at this point through clergy, a lot through the clergy system here in town.
And they would not qualify for any kind of housing program through another social service agency?
If they do, we work with that other organization to best fit whatever's best for the client.
Yeah.
And if they do not qualify for whatever set of reasons to another program, most like our program is the housing component at 180.
Yeah.
So if they would not qualify for that for some reason, or if the other organizations, the other housing providers here will contact me and say, we're full, we don't have any place for this person, can you look at them? Or, they don't fit quite in our eligibility niche criteria, but they need your help. So I do find them through that as well.
Would Wayne Countyans be surprised to know how many homeless there are?
I think so. I would be surprised to know how many homeless there actually are too, in the sense of it's really hard to count homeless people. And it's exceptionally hard in rural communities to do so. It's a little bit easier, not easy by any means at all, but it's much easier in an urban setting, in a city, a larger city setting, where shelters are more prevalent and in use more than what they are around here. Rural settings, we talked about this previously too, and that was rural settings. A lot of our homelessness shows up in overcrowded situations where family is we're still in a rural setting, we're still mid-America, and families and friends are willing to take in people who are without homes or temporarily or permanently find themselves in a situation where they cannot provide housing for themselves. And they're very generous to do so, to offer their homes and so forth. I mean, back in the day, which is God knows when, but say the 1950s, 1960s, whatever, 40s and even before, when somebody in the family or when somebody close to the family had a problem, families took care of their own. And you still see that in the rural settings. You will still see that the family structure and strata is still in contact enough that they will do what they can to provide for their families. So it's not always glamorous, and it doesn't always work out well in this economy, in this modern age, because the family that's trying to take care of the person that has absolutely nothing doesn't have a whole lot themselves, and then perhaps puts themselves at risk for losing their stable housing situation. So it's a complicated catch-22 cycle that we're in at this point. But it is very hard to count. And the number of homeless people nationwide, not to mention locally, and not to mention when you add in those characteristics and idiosyncrasies of the rural homeless population. So Yeah, Wayne counties would be surprised. As I said, I would be surprised because I think it's really, we just have the annual point in time count that's mandated by HUD. And we're always shocked as a housing coalition and as service providers in this business, if you will, of providing housing or getting people connected with housing, safe and affordable housing options. We're always shocked at either the numbers that turn out for that count, or we can count, we can physically go and count them, or that don't. And we know that they're there because we're, as service providers, we're providing services to people that are not counted the night of the point in time count. So it is a much more prevalent social problem than what we see on a daily basis. I hate to use this analogy, and it's really not a good one, but you know, when you go to an animal shelter, you see immediately, okay, they have X amount of dog crates or you know, facility, a number of dogs that they can supply in there, and then they have X amount of cat crates and rabbits and I don't know what else they have in an animal shelter. But you know, you go in, you see, okay, they've got 36 cages for dogs, and they've got 12 in here today. Okay, you count, you know, does that give you a rough estimate of how many stray dogs or homeless animals there really are in Wayne County? I don't think so. I mean, I think there's probably a lot more than 12, even if they've got a facility for 36. So it's a little bit like that. Like if you were to go into Salvation Army shelter on any given night, there may be 19, there may be 37, there may be whatever, you know, there may be 5, but that doesn't really show you who is technically really homeless and who's willing to go there to seek the shelter. There's a lot of pride involved in this, and that's one thing I've been very shocked at throughout the time of doing Holly House is homeless people are they're prideful people in a very if they want to better their situation, you know, make their situation better and become stable and regain housing and get life back on track. They're very serious about it, and they don't want people to know. It's like this stigma. They don't want people to know, oh my God, I'm homeless. I mean, and they've lost everything, and it may not be, you know, for any one particular reason. That's another thing we think of is, you know, oh, they're homeless because they're on drugs, or they're homeless because they're this, or they're homeless, you know, it's their fault. Okay, there's a lot of blame that goes with it. There's another reason that I started this project was it's like no fault of ours here at Holly House. Okay, it's no fault of anyone's that we have homeless people in society. It's a matter of how are we going to work with them, how are we going to address the social problem of homelessness, and really that goes back to the why question of why I'm doing this. And I feel that this project is a very solid, tangible method of addressing poverty in a very macro, general level by dealing with a specific population that is probably the poorest of the poor, which is homeless people.